Hello, welcome back. I'm Katy McKinney with the Lady K podcast, and I'm the founder and head of school for Lafayette Academy, a classical school. And today we are talking about character, and it's going to lead us into what I call our mission moments. These are some of the exclamation points on what we're doing and why we're doing what we do at the Academy. And it's always fun to share. They are triumphs that our students demonstrate, and it's really a joy to witness those moments. And so I wanted to share with you a few of those. So when I started the school, really the hunt that I was on was looking for excellence in academics and excellence in character. Those were just the two things I wanted, and it was very hard to find those two things married up in a school. I'll go into that another time, but that is something we really strive to do on a daily, if not hourly basis at the school, is making sure that our academics, of course, are excellent, and they're world class, but we are also looking to make sure that that character is at that same level. And reason being, it would be a great shame if we were to educate students with incredible intellectual vigor, and while at the same time forget about the character. We've got plenty of that in our world, of those individuals who have no character but are very intelligent, and that does nothing but harm for the rest of us. So we want to make sure that we're aiming towards goodness and truth and beauty. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit more today. So I guess this is a question I've been posing to my faculty as well as to our students. Why is it that goodness tends to be the path towards happiness? Our founders knew that virtue led towards happiness. And in our documents, our founding documents, it talks about the pursuit of happiness. We all want to be happy as human beings. That's been something for the ages, that we all want the same thing. We just go about fighting it a little differently. But why is it that we want to pursue goodness in the way in which we do to find happiness? And I won't go into a great detail here, but the thought that comes to me is that it comes down to best practice. And to do what is good tends to eliminate a lot of the barriers as we work towards what it means to flourish as human beings. And really, that's a message that I talk a lot when it comes to discipline with our students. I talk about, and I ask them, why is it that we choose the pathway of good rather than of evil to get accomplished what we want to get accomplished? And to me, it eliminates a lot of the junk, a lot of the noise when you are doing the right thing at the right time, which we talk about as having temperance, demonstrating prudence. And that allows you to be the best version of yourself. So we'll leave it at that for the moment. We have 4 classical virtues that we pursue at our school, and they are ancient virtues. They are of temperance, which is, as I explain it to the students, it's being the boss of yourself. It's taking care of yourself. It doesn't mean you're completely isolated and you can do whatever you think and want to do at whatever time. No, it's being able to temper your emotions, temper your desires in the pursuit of doing what is right at the right time. But we do call it being your own boss, taking care of yourself. And then eventually, once you take care of yourself, you can then take care of others. I kind of think of it as the mask on the airplane. Get your mask on first, your oxygen mask, and then you can tend to those around you. Courage, we talk about having courage means to do something even in spite of the fear. There may be times when you're very scared, but you pursue that objective anyway. That's having courage. We have the next virtue of justice, and that is doing what is fair and right to yourself and to those around you. And then lastly, prudence, using the knowledge and experience that you have gained to then help you make wise decisions. That is, in essence, prudence. Of course, it doesn't end there. We have lots of attributes that complement those 4 virtues, such as honesty, politeness, gratitude, humility. But those are just the 4 main ones that we talk about a lot. So the virtue that we teach is often reinforced not only through real life experiences that are happening every day, from the playground to the hallways to the classroom, but we also reinforce these virtues through our great stories, both in real and in imagined stories. And those stories reveal the moral truths that we are seeking to teach our children. And this happens in history, it happens in literature, and it allows our students to juxtapose even two characters, one of who demonstrates virtue, one who demonstrates vice, and to look at those two pathways. And in fact, I'll just interrupt myself here for a minute. I remember my daughter when she was in 8th grade, she was reading To Kill a Mockingbird, and she was sitting on our bed one night reading, and she stops and she puts her book down and she says, "Mom, I am being changed by this book." And I said, "Really? Tell me more. What does that mean?" She said, "Well, there's this character named Atticus, and I want to be like him." And I said, "Well, tell me, what does that mean?" And she said, I love how he can step into the shoes of whomever he is defending. He's an attorney, whomever he's defending, and he can articulate with great clarity that person's position." And she said, "I want to be able to think like that." She then paused and she said, "I think I want to name my son Atticus." So she was seeing a beautiful example of virtuous behavior, that it was attractive to her. And the reason it was attractive is because it was full of strength and full of beauty. And she was wanting to emulate that in her own life. Obviously, that's a fictional story, but it's one that has implications, the etching of character in one that is very real. And that's just a small example of how we are teaching virtue in our school. Okay, so let's get to some of the fun moments of how we're emulating these virtuous moments. And again, I call these our mission moments. So I'm going to start with Henry. Henry is a first-year student at our school, and we have, as we've talked about, we have our new fitness program. And the fitness program's aim, amongst many things, is to, what I'm excited about, is that it's teaching our students grit, and it's carving in them a character that is difficult to do in the classroom. It exposes them to challenges, physical challenges outside that are going to push them and see what they're made of. And it helps the student recognize perhaps where they need to strengthen themselves, and or when they have triumphs, what a tremendous cause for celebration that is, especially after they've worked so hard. So back to Henry. We have adopted at different parts of our fitness program a program called the Iliad Athletic Program and Iliad Athletics by Patrick Whalen up at Hillsdale College. And part of that is an assessment tool that the students have to go through a variety of challenges. And one of those challenges is called the body drag. And they have to drag someone of equal weight within 10 pounds about 40 meters. So the students all kind of pair up, figuring out who's about their same weight. And here comes Henry, who is pulling another student. And I'll see if I can find a picture here to share with you. But as he's pulling his buddy, it was extremely difficult for Henry to do this. It was extremely difficult for all of us, teachers included. We did this as well. It was like the hardest thing of the entire challenge, of the entire course, I guess you could say. And he had to put down his buddy numerous times. And honestly, there were times where I'm thinking, he's going to give up. This is so hard. He's going to stop. He did not stop. He would just take a rest. And this is all timed. So the clock is ticking away. And he would just catch his breath. Then he'd pick up his buddy again, and he would drag him the best he could. And he crossed that finish line. I have never seen such determination. It was, when you're trying to illustrate that in a classroom, there's just no way to do it in the way that it was done here on the field. And to watch Henry do this, it was inspiring as a teacher, as an adult. And so how did that change him? I will say that when he first came to visit us, he was a little gruff. I shared this with his mom, and she's like, yep, I can see that. And she said, I told him actually in our little interview process, I said, when you came in and you greeted me, it was a little gruff. And he said, gruff? What do you mean gruff? And I said, you know what? And I didn't want to get into the lesson right then because I was actually going to be assessing him for math and for reading. So I said, you know what? Let's not worry about that right now. I told him, we'll handle that later. Right now, let's just work on your assessment. So how do we handle it later? We handle it by allowing our students the opportunity to go through this fitness program. So to develop grit, right? So he goes through and he does the body drag, he gets done. And I tell you, when I saw him in the hallway later that day and throughout the coming weeks, there was a new humility in Henry that was beautiful, and it was strong, and it was humble. It was sweet. He would shake my hand, and there was a sincerity now in his eyes that was eager to be there, eager to learn, eager to welcome new challenges, because I think in the end, he felt like he had achieved something that he didn't even know was possible. I think he surprised himself, and that gave him inner strength that was not manufactured. It was authentic. That was beautiful, and it was incredibly, as I mentioned, inspiring. So that was one mission moment where I thought, how do you can't even put that on a standardized test. There is no way. So it was just one of those moments you get to witness it. We get to document his time. We'll then assess him. I think it's 3 or 4 more times through this Iliad athletic course. And we'll see. Well, hopefully we'll make progress on his time. That's one way to measure this. But the other is just in his everyday behaviors. And I'm watching him turn this corner from somewhat manufacturing the sense of control and dominion that he thought he had to actually authentically beholding within himself the knowledge of what he's actually capable of. It was awesome. It was beautiful. Okay, let's go to Mitchell. So we went on a camp out recently. We took the 8th through 12th graders on this beautiful property in Herman, Missouri, 160 acres. And we did what's called a bio blitz, where we go and survey all the different types of life that were on this beautiful property, from the creeks to the woodland areas to the prairies. It was awesome. Collected all that data. And then after we did our work, we had a little fun in the creek. Here's Mitchell. He's in 9th grade. Mitchell's now been with us 6/7 years, a long time. And I'll tell a little story on Mitchell. When I first met him, the very first day, he was in 3rd grade. And he too was a little gruff. And the way he talked to his teacher, I said, Mitchell, and I was walking by the classroom. It was the very first day of school. And I heard him, and as I described it to him, I said, "You just barked at your teacher." And in fact, I think he barked at me, and he said, "Barked? What do you mean barked?" And I said, "Well, the way in which you spoke to me was rude." And he said, "Rude? Well, what's rude?" So I had the opportunity. I said, "Well, it's a way in speaking to someone that is not of a very respectful tone." And he knew what that meant. So later I found out he went home and he talked to his mom and dad about it. And his mom said, "Why don't you go back and get some more details as to how you were rude and, continue to work on this." So he comes back, and the next day he says, "Mrs. McKinney, you told me yesterday I was rude. Tell me again how I was rude." And I felt like his question was sincere. And it should have given me an inkling as to who this amazing character that we know as Mitchell is, because he's very introspective and just a phenomenal thinker. But I explained to him again how he was rude, and he just sat for a minute with that. And he's like, "Okay." And it was such a beautiful response. I knew he was internalizing that moment of barkiness, and he took it that was something he needed to correct and adjust. Okay, flash forward now 6-7 years. We're on this camp out. He has on these awesome new hiking shoes that he did not want to get wet. And everyone's having fun. The teachers, the kids, they're jumping in this beautiful creek, which used to be the water hole for this area in Herman, decades ago. It was just a lovely, lovely area. Anyway, the kids were joking, "Oh, haha, wouldn't it be funny if Mitchell sort of fell in the water?" Well, as it turns out, he got pushed into the water. And he, prior to this, before any of this happened, he was very emphatic, telling everyone, "I do not want to go in the water. My shoes are brand new. I do not want to get them wet." He was being responsible. Appreciate that. And he said it 2 or 3 times. As it turns out, he did get pushed in the water. And there was a moment of gasping, because in the past, Mitchell has worked on his temperance, and no one was quite sure if he was going to be upset or not. And though he was upset, he got out of the water on the other side of the creek. He didn't say anything, and he walked away. He ended up, as we later found out, going back to his tent. He took off his socks and his new boots, put on his tennis shoes with clean socks, And that gave him some time to cool down. He came back. And this to me was the most beautiful thing. He comes back to the student who pushed him in, and he said to her in general terms, I'm not directly quoting, but it was something to the essence of, I know that you did not mean to make me upset or push me in, even though I asked you not to. I know that you didn't mean to cause me any harm. I forgive you for doing that, and I'd like to just move forward and basically let bygones be bygones. I would say 2 or 3 years ago, that would have, for Mitchell, probably involved tears. It would have involved a lot of drama. And something, and we'll talk about this in another podcast as well, something that we work on both on our shooting team and as students in the classroom is what we call our mental management. And our students, a number of them that I work with, have a specific objective that they write down, that is their objective, and it can be for months. And for some students, it's learning how to focus on their work. It's using their mind and body for good. And for Mitchell, he was focused on the idea of being temperate, of mentally managing himself. He demonstrated with such confidence and with such clarity his governance of himself in that moment. He had, frankly, every right to be angry, and he had every right to probably lose it, but he chose not to. And it was a moment of great depth and inspiration for those of us around watching and witnessing this. I was not there, but I was relayed all this information, and it was a moment that I think, at least for Mitchell, I'm sure he will remember for a long time. And those of us who were either there or who were told of the scenario take great strength from that, because it shows how in control one can be when one makes that decision proactively. It was incredibly beautiful, and just a great moment for him, demonstrating his maturity and his self-governance. I have 2 more that I want to share with you. I don't want to go too long, but let me share this other one. So this is a student who's now been with us for, I think, about 18 months. She's in our middle school. And this is not so much, well, it is a mission moment. Yeah, it is a mission moment, but it's a beautiful compliment to her and her desire to learn. So she, before she came and enrolled in our school, she visited, which we often do a shadow day. And prior to that, she asked her mom a few questions. She was coming from a nearby public school, and she asked her mom, are there any fights at your school or at this school? And her mom said, no. And she said, is there any girl drama? And she's like, no. I guess there's girl drama everywhere, right? But there's not like what you're used to at your public school. She said, are there sexual assaults? And I'm thinking, holy smokes, at 7th grade, this girl was dealing with sexual assaults in her middle school. No, we do not have sexual assaults. Then she asked, do the boys go to the bathroom in the toilet? And her mom was like, okay, time out. Just so you know, this school is not like anything you've ever experienced. All those questions that you just answered, it's an emphatic no. I need you to just go visit the school and then let's talk. So she did that. She enrolled, obviously, and about 2 months into her enrolled time, she enrolled in January, and so then I touched base with her in about March timeframe. I said, so, come on in. I want to chat with you. She sat down. I said, how are things going? And she just broke out with a huge smile. And she said, the people are so nice here and nobody makes fun of me. She said, the kids are more focused. They don't throw things across the room. They don't cuss their teachers out. And of course, I was happy to hear that. Yes, okay. I would not expect anything less, but it was nice for her to be able to experience that. I then asked her, I said, if you could put a percentage on how much you've learned in the last 8 weeks compared to your previous school, what would you say? And she paused for a minute and she's like, 100%. And I said, wow. So I clarified with her. I said, you've learned 100% more in the last 8 weeks here than you have in the last 5 months at your previous school. And she just very quietly said yes. So then I asked a follow-up question. I said, okay, well, tell me, what have you learned? And she said, I've learned how to write. I've learned the 8 parts of speech. I've learned how to diagram sentences. And I now understand how math works without a calculator. And I stopped her and I said, what do you mean how math works? And she said, well, at my previous school for many years, we've all had computers and I didn't really know in math what was going on. And here you all have to write it out. We do long division, we write it out. Multiplication, we write it out. Problem solving, word problems, we do what's called bar modeling. And we ask our students, show us your process. That's almost as important as the actual answer for us. And then she just smiled and she said, I'm just learning so much. And I will just say, just a brag moment on her, she came into our school in 7th grade, and I believe she was at like a 4th or 5th grade math level. And in 18 months, she has moved 5, 6, 7, 8. She's moved about 4 years in math in about 18 months. She's very hungry. She's tutored over the summer. She's done extra work. She has just flown, and it's coming from her. She is hungry, but it's turning out she's exceptional as well. And that's always a lovely bonus to see a student who is excelling in their work. They're hungry to learn. They love to learn. It's a joy to partner with her, and it's a joy to give her all the tools she needs to be her best version of herself. So in any case, the takeaway for me is that when we have these students coming into us who are behind greatly in math and handwriting and writing and reading, I feel like we saved another one. When they come into classical education, the framework from which we teach or how we teach it really brings the child alive. It touches every facet of their being, of being a human, and it maximizes it. And she's one that is really soaking this education for what it's worth. And in a way, to me, she's being liberated. That's what a liberal education is all about. It's from the Latin, and liberal really means to be free, to be set free, to think freely. And that is what, in this case, very, very clearly is happening. She's being liberated, and it's really fun. Okay, last one. This was fun. This happened in September of this last year. And our 3rd and 4th graders were in art class, and we had a couple visitors who were visiting all our classes, and they popped in, and the kids were there painting their artwork for Veterans Day. So for Veterans Day, each year we have a theme. Last year it was poppies, and that's a World War I symbol. And so we talk about the symbolism of the poppy. We memorize beautiful poetry. Colonel John McCrae, in Flanders Fields, where the poppies grow beneath the crosses, row by row. So our kids memorized that. And then we did all the artwork. K through 12 was all about poppies. And each class has its own. It's really beautiful. Anyway, this year, because it's the 250th anniversary of the United States, we decided, the art teacher and I decided, that we should do something that had to do with symbolizing or celebrating America in all these different ways. Okay, so the 3rd and 4th grade class are painting a beautiful bison, a watercolor bison, on a background or a backdrop of purple mountains. Okay, so that's setting the stage. So our 2 visitors come in, and the art teacher explains to them, okay, these 3rd and 4th graders, they're painting this bison. It's on their Purple Mountain Majesty. Now, because our students are, we'll just say, they're culturally literate. They know the American songs, they know American poetry, they know the story, or the song, of America the Beautiful. And, oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber ways of grain, for purple mountains majesties, above the fruited plain. So the teacher says to them, or to the visitors, they're painting this bison in front of the Purple Mountain Majesty. And all of a sudden, the kids break out singing America the Beautiful. And it was completely spontaneous. And I think it took the art teacher by surprise. It definitely took our visitors by surprise. And if you can just imagine, the kids are just doing their thing, and they're just painting away, singing. And this was definitely a mission moment. But okay, why was it a mission moment? What the heck is our mission? What are we doing? We are cultivating a sense of civic virtue, of a love of America, of this experiment that started 250 years ago. And we all know that America has not been perfect. You know, what organization is perfect? What country is perfect? What people is perfect? None. But the principles in which America adheres to is exceptional. It is about liberty for mankind. Did we get it right out of the gate? Absolutely not. But we work diligently to correct it, and we still work diligently to correct it where it needs to be corrected because we adhere to those high ideals. And what I loved about this moment was that it illustrated this sense of civic virtue, but honestly, when you boil it right down to it, it's love. And I think with everything that's happened in our world over the last couple of months, it seems like there's a shooting every week over the last number of weeks. To me, the only antidote is love. There's so much hate being cultivated through a variety of pathways. And if there's anything we can do that's good, is to help our students love themselves, love their families, love their friends, love their country, love God, if they adhere to God, just to love. And to me, that is the only answer to what we see going on. And to see these kids just be effervescent with their love of their artwork, of the love of singing and of being joyful and of sharing it freely, regardless of who's in the room. Wow, it was a powerful moment. So anyway, more mission moments to come. I hope you enjoyed this one, and hopefully it brightened your day. Have a good one.